So in our last shiur, I'm sorry. So in our last shiur, we have the Chatan, we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Talking to Am Yisrael, to the Neshama. And Im lo tedei lecha yafa banashim, right? If you think that you're ugly in your eyes, you are so pretty, there's so much for you to accomplish. Follow the path of the Avot, right? And do not be the loser. Do not be the follower, right? That's in a nutshell the message that we learned. Now, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chatan. Now we'll continue with a statement. A statement of 3 pesukim. Of 3 pesukim. And we're going to try to look at those pesukim together. And the reason why I would like to do the 3 pesukim together is because we have 2 complete different perspectives from the Gaon Mivilna on one end and from the Malbim on the other, and most of the Mefarshim on the other. So in order not to confuse pasuk, I would like to go over those 3 pesukim, and we'll dive into it. Okay. So we are in pasuk tet, if I'm not mistaken, correct? We did pasuk chet. Now we're pasuk tet. Lesusati berichve paro. I am comparing you, my love, right? So it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking to Knesset Israel, or to the Neshama, to the Nefesh HaElukit, right? Or the Chatan talking to the Kala, right? That woman that has been imprisoned and taken away from her husband. Lesusati berichve paro. I compare you to the horse, the female horse that was on the chariots of Paro. And we're going to see what that means. That's what I compare you to. Navu lechayarich batorim. Your cheeks are orned with torim. Torim is a type of jewel that is made of strings but one piece. Is that women used to wear and used to fall on their cheeks. It was like a way of showing their beauty of their face. So he says, I'm comparing you, your cheeks look like these pieces of gold that sit on your cheeks. This is how I see you, orned with gold and beauty and jewel. Tzavarech, and your neck, baharozim, with strings of pending jewels. It's like a big necklace that has a lot of pieces of jewelry of diamonds and precious stones coming down. So obviously, we need to understand what is the comparison to a horse, a female horse, and what does that have to do with Paro in the first pasuk, right? What's that comparison? Second comparison, he sees her and praises her with the 2 types of jewels. One type of jewel that sits on the cheeks that are made of bigger pieces, and jewels that sit on the neck that have pendants on it. You like? Torei zahav na'aselach. We will add strings of gold. Torah Zahav. Tor is, like a Tor is like a line. Like we'll add on you more threads worth of gold, and we will do it with dots of silver. We do it with dots of silver. This is the final statement of the Chatan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Am Yisrael. And essentially, this makes no sense. Okay? It makes no sense. So we will start with the Gaon Mivilna. The Gaon Mivilna says that the most beautiful horses in history were the horses of Paro. He used to breed the nicest Arabian horse, the most beautiful one, the most powerful one. But he would send the male to war with his soldiers and keep the female ones on his chariot that was orned with all the diamonds and all the jewels of the world. Says Shlomo HaMelech, according to the Gaon Mivilna, and this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu now talking to Klal Yisrael. He says, I compare you to that horse that was on the chariots of Paro, meaning you are the majestuous essence, nature, that has been chosen and cherished and protected to be close to Malchut, close to the king, close to the wealth, close to the power. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Knesset Israel, there's a lot of horses, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of different nations, but I chose you, and I didn't choose you to go to war. I didn't choose you to have it hard. I choose you to stay close to the kingdom, to stay close to the wealth, close to the power, close to me. This is the relationship I have established with you. Now the horse, but its nature is to run. It's to run. If you leave a horse to its nature, you're going to lose the horse. He runs and runs and runs and runs. Says the Gaon Mivilna to Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Am Yisrael, look, you keep on wanting to run. You want to go to war. You just want to keep on going. When essentially you fight these how do you call the leashes that hold the horse, the reins, right? The reins that hold the horse on the chariot. You might feel that you're stuck. You might feel that you are, that you're in control. You're in my control, or I'm holding you back. But the reality is that you're attached to the chariot because I chose you, because you're precious, and because I want you close to me. Here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pointing with his finger to Am Yisrael and telling Am Yisrael, what you think is a restriction, what you think are boundaries in the Torah, by having you close to me, is not a way to punish you. It's not a way to hold you back. It's not a way to refrain your growth, but it's a sign of love. It's because I want you close to me. Because if I let you go, you will disappear. So here the Gaon explains that on one hand, we see the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and how he has chosen us and made sure we don't run away. But on the flip side also, it shows us the nature of man, that if we are not aligned with the chariot and we don't have those reins in our mouth and we're not held back, our nature is that we're going to run maybe further than the rest of the horses. And those horses end up at war and end up dying during war. Comes Akadosh Baruch Hu, comes Shlomo Melech and says something very important. Be careful of the fact that you are Am Yisrael, that you're a Jew. Because if you're not connected to the king, you will go so far that you will put your life in danger and you're going to end up killing yourself. And we see it. We see how Am Yisrael, if they're not connecting to the Torah and they shy away from it and they should disappear. And we end up sometimes becoming our own worst enemies. The biggest anti-Jews are Jews.
Yes.
Here, Shlomo HaMelech says, be careful. And do not think that the restrictions of the Torah are here to hold you back. The opposite is to protect, to love, to show the world how precious you are. Because I'm using you, I'm choosing you to represent me and to lead me when I'm sitting on the chariot. It's a very, very big statement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes.
So we are the horse and Hashem is sitting
on the chariot.
Okay.
Wow. And the horses of the king, they have all these beautiful, like a cloth on it, and the reins are made of gold with like some precious stones.
Wow.
And now he goes and dives in. And he's getting a little bit more specific. He says, I didn't just choose you and hold on to you. Navu lehayayich batorim. Your cheeks are plated with gold, right? The cheeks have these golden plates on it that I put on your cheeks. And your tzavar and your neck have strings of jewels. The horse, yeah? Now, again, that's the image of the horse. So what is the difference between the cheeks? What does the cheeks represent? And what does the neck represent? And why those two different types of jewels? So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Torah and he gave us mitzvot. There's a very big difference between the Torah and the mitzvot. The Torah is a global grasp of knowledge that is independent from time, space, or any situation. The mitzvot are specific to time, specific to organs, specific to space and situations. Clear distinction. For example, you have Pesach, Sukkot, Tzitzit, Tefillin. These are mitzvot, very specific to timing and very specific to different parts of the body. The Torah is the mind, is the intellect. You can learn any part of the Torah together at once. You can learn. You can learn about Ilchot Tefillin, about Kibud Avaim, about Ilchot Ribit, about Ta'arovot, Basar Bechalav. It doesn't matter, right? You can learn everything. So the cheeks represents the head. The cheeks is the outer piece, right? Is the muscles on the face that basically represents the expression of the head. It represents the Torah. The Torah is orned with pieces, big pieces of jewel. It's one piece, one big piece that sits on the cheek. The Torah is not fragmented. Doesn't matter what you learn, you can always grasp. It's one entity, one big flow of will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you can tap it at any time. The tzavar represents the connection to from the head to the body. It's almost, according to the Gaon, it's almost the extension of the body that connects to the head. It represents the different parts of the body, the hands, the legs. It represents the mitzvot. And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to the body is a lot of pendants, a lot of different mitzvot, different jewels that are pending on the neck. So those jewels represent the mitzvot because it sits on the neck that represents the body, the actions. And those big plates of gold sit on the cheek, which represents the head, which represents the unity of the Torah, the beauty of one Torah. What we see here is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us two ways to interact with Him, and in two ways we show through our actions how proud He is of us. One is through the learning of the Torah, and two, through the different opportunities we have to do mitzvot. And he finishes by saying, the Torah is learned with the brain. The brain is concentrated in one place versus the organs that are completely in different places. The hands, the legs, right? The lungs, everything is in different place. The mitzvot, they're very spread in space, spread in time, and you have to go and grasp it. You have to go and you have to run after the mitzvah, the legs. You have to hold on to the mitzvah, take the opportunity, the hands. But when it comes to the Torah is all concentrated in one. And he says, but Torim, there are two cheeks with two plates of gold, right? One which is Torah shebichtav, the other one Torah shebe'al peh. And he says something fantastic. He says each plate, okay, represents the brain, right? The Torah, which is the sechel, which is the brain. He says the brain is made of three pieces. You have the two major pieces of the brain, and then you have the small cerebrum that sits in the back that basically fuses the two portions of the brain, which means that the brain is made of three pieces. Interestingly enough, in Torah Shebichtav, you have Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. And Torah Shebe'al Peh, you have Mishnah, Gemara, and Braita. We're not going to dive into which part does what, but the Gaon Mivilna goes into each part of the brain and what part of the brain is needed for the Gemara, which part of the brain is needed for the Mishnah, and what part of the brain is needed for the Braita. Same thing for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. So basically, when you learn Tanakh, or when you learn Gemara, Mishnah, Braita, what you do is you stimulate a part of your brain without even knowing it. This is why we have the Chok Israel. In Chok Israel, we learn everything. Every day there's a Seder, Torah, Tanakh. We learn the whole Tanakh. We learn Nevi'im, Ketuvim, we learn Gemara, we learn Mishnah, we learn Halacha, right? Everything. Zohar. In order to stimulate each part of the brain and infuse in it the Kedusha, and if you will, start the engine of the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm using now my brain for the glory of Hashem. Everything you use your brain for afterwards is gravy, because you turned it on already. But if you start one part of the engine, one part of the brain, and not the other, so the machine is defective. For that specific reason, one of the reasons, most of the Mekubalim, and by the way, it's not only Mekubalim today, it's a lot of people, they have Chok Israel. It takes like 15 minutes, 20 minutes every morning, and they read it, and they basically they start the engine of every aspect of the brain.
What exactly do they read?
So every day, we take the parasha and we break it down into 7 days. We take a portion of the Nevi'im and we break it down, of the Ketuvim and we break it down, of the Mishnah, of the Gemara, of the Zohar, which is Braita, Halacha, Musa. Sure, every day, little portion, tak, just in order to tap into that part of the brain, stimulate it with Kedusha, and let it roll. Now he says, then Shlomo HaMelech says, Toreh Zahav Na'aselach, the strings, the Torah of gold that we do on your neck, Na'aselach, Im Nekudot HaKasef. We're doing it with dots of silver. Says the Gaon Mivilna, what does that mean? Here comes a major difference between the jewel that sits on the cheeks of the Torah, which represents the Torah, and the mitzvot. The Torah, you can learn, and you can make some mistakes. It's Torah. It's knowledge. Hava miniyam, it's endless. So, yes, you have to dive as much as you can, but if you can't, you can catch up. However, when we start talking about the tzavar, about the neck, which represents the body, which represents the mitzvot, you need the resolution of nekudat hakasef, the dot of silver. Says the Gaon Mivilna, what is this dot of silver? He says, like the Gemara says in Pesachim, you can read a word helev, or you can read it halav. The nekudot, the detail in the mitzvot is so important that you can turn something from kosher to non-kosher or non-kosher to kosher. When it comes to practical mitzvot, the Gaon says you have to be as meticulous as possible. And it's a nekuda. A nekuda is a dot. It's something you have to look for. But the silver is white. It's clarity. Versus the gold that is yellow or red or green. Different types of gold. Silver is white. You need to get to a resolution of precision in order to find the clarity in the mitzvot. You cannot just do mitzvot, chafif, yalla, let's do it. I did it okay, more or less. More or less I ate matzah. More or less I did lulav. More or less I put tefillin. More or less I put tzitzit. No. You have to be extremely meticulous to the dot. If you're able to come down to such a resolution, you get the clarity and the power and the impact of the mitzvah. Now you did a full mitzvah. I'll give you an example. It's like you have a beautiful shirt, okay, and it's a little bit ripped. As long as you don't see it, it doesn't bother you, right? But it's ripped, but it doesn't bother you. The second you see that little hole, that's it, you go crazy. I cannot wear it. It's not nice. What I'm going to do? But you need to see it to recognize that there's a hole in it. You need that level of resolution when it comes to actions, because the precision in your action is what will determine your level of success. Good?
Rav, what determines the level of success?
The precision. The more, and let's dive into that thought for a second. What stimulates a person to be precise? His careness. The more he cares, the more he will be precise. The less he cares, the less he's precise. True? When you care about something, you can see every little detail. You have some people, they care about their car so much, like if there's a little scratch, the tiniest scratch, boom, it's like it's shining. Emet? So says Shlomo HaMelech, the more you care, the more precise you are. The more precise you are, the closest you are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Because now suddenly you value and you care about all those jewels and this precious attention he gives you. Another example. If I come and I bring you a present, a beautiful present, and you open the box, thank you so much, it's nice, you close the box, you put it aside. Nice, something is missing. But if you open the box and slowly you look at the box, beautiful box, you take out the present and you look at it and you address every little detail. Look at the difference of colors, look at the shine, look at the shape, look at the quality, look how it's made, look how it works. This gives the person that gave the present a tremendous pleasure. When you do that, you give tremendous pleasure to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you are accurate about your mitzvot, you show HaKadosh Baruch Hu how precious they are. What happens? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so proud and so filled with love of your reaction that he's giving you more. He wants to give you more presents. A major difference between mitzvot and Torah. Torah, it's about the effort, breaking your head and learning and not making a difference between what you like to learn and what you don't like to learn. It doesn't matter if it's relevant or irrelevant in our days. The Torah is the Torah. Whether you learn Sha'atnez, or you learn Techelet, or you learn Korbanot, or you learn Lashon Hara, or you learn Gemara Psachim, or you learn Arachif Para Behamor. Doesn't matter what you learn. Yain Neser, things that might not be relevant today at all. But it's the Torah. It's the wisdom. It's the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the will of Hashem. And it's one. It's one. It's broken down into compartments, but essentially it's one. Here, it gives you almost a balance on the attention you need to address when you learn Torah versus when you do mitzvot. And let me be clear. I'm not saying that you have to be sloppy in your limud Torah. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a major difference of what it takes to be successful in mitzvot and to be successful in Torah.
Rav, I find it, I don't know if it's the right word, strange that we compare both the Torah and the mitzvot to a physical object.
No, again. First of all, it's a very good question, and Chazak Ubahu, it's a very good question. That leads us to the Malbim. But keep in mind that there is an underlying, okay, intimate interaction between two essences, between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Am Yisrael, between the body and the neshama, between the, you understand what I'm saying? So it's written in a way that any person can actually relate to it and extrapolate on it. Good?
Yes, thank you.
Don't forget, because all this is expression of love. It's re-strengthening, reaffirming, crystallizing the bond between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Are we good?
Yes.
Can we go back now and address the Malbim?
Yes.
Okay. So the Malbim takes a completely different approach. The Malbim says that the Richve Paro is the Yetzer Hara, the chariot of Paro. And it's almost as if now the Neshama tells the Nefesh, what can you do? You're stuck. I feel bad for you. What does that mean? Who runs the chariots? Paro. Paro represents Mitzrayim, represents impurity, represents Avodah Zarah, represents immorality. And this tendency, which is the Yetzer Hara, controls the horses. And he says, you let your Yetzer Hara, it tells Shlomo HaMelech, you let your Yetzer Hara take control over you. You, the Nefesh HaElokit, you that sus, that was once free, that was once beautiful. Suddenly, look at, it's completely the opposite. You are under now the control of Paro, of the chariot of Paro, of the person that rules, that controls the chariot. And where Paro wants to go, where the Yetzer Hara wants to go, he says, Mitzrayim represented immorality on many levels. They loved women, but they loved women that were different. They would import slaves and beautiful women from all over the world to serve their own pleasures. And they did it, and the women needed to have pride, not just any woman. They had to dress well, they had to have their own personality, they have to be filled with crazy desires, they had to be jealous, they had to demand respect, they had to love wealth. And this is what Paro represents. And we come and we tell Shlomo HaMelech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Neshama, tells the Nefesh, you are stuck. You let that side of Shlomo HaMelech take the best of you and control you, and let Shlomo go and marry the daughter of Paro and love all these women. You allowed this tendency, this animalistic power, take the best of Shlomo. It says, Navu lechayayich batorim. He says the following. He says, when you were free, you didn't need all this gold, you didn't need all this jewels, but you got attracted to it. You saw the chariot full of gold, full of precious stones, and you got close to it. You let Paro take you and hold you because he attracted you with all that gold. Something you never needed it, but you were so appealed to it, and so you wanted it so much that you fell into the trap of not becoming attached to it and not being able to let go and have your own freedom. And more so now, this is what identifies you. You are a Susa of the chariot of Paro. This is what identifies you. The gold, the fame, the power. Now all these elements need to be carried in order for you to be known. Before the Nefesh, when you were in the Olam HaElyon, before you came down to the world into Shlomo HaMelech, you were free. You didn't need all this. You would grasp everything in such a pure, clean, and complete way. And suddenly, there was this overtake, this control of the Yetzer Hara, of this aspect of Paro within Shlomo, who swallowed you in. And now you are dependent on all those factors. The plates that sit on your cheeks, the ornament on the all those nice necklaces on your neck. He says the cheeks represents the speech. The tzavar represents the expression of the brain. Today, he says, before you didn't need to speak. You didn't need to express how smart you are. You were just grasping everything. Today, you need the gold to be heard. You need to show the diamonds in order to be respected intellectually. You've lost your real value. You've lost your real identity and you sold it for the fame and the gold. And he says, "Toreh zahav na'aseh lach im nekudat hakesef." He says now, with all this very flashy, superficial jewels that's on you, the only source of purity that you have is those little nekudot hakesef, those little dots of kesef, those white little dots. These impartial, plain, without any color. It's white. Silver doesn't have really any color that attracts. It says this is what you narrow down to. And this is what you have to hold on to again. And he says, instead, there was a huge downgrade due to the submission of the neshama, of the nefesh ha'elokit, to the desires of the body, to the fame, to the glory, to the money, there was a downgrade in the ability of processing. The Malbim explains that when you didn't have all this, you were free to process everything you want in such a clear way. Now, you have a burden. Now you have all these different elements that you have to take into factor before you get to the same place. Maybe get to the same place. So basically what the Malbim tells us is that the neshama comes and screams at the nefesh and tells the nefesh, you've sold yourself short. You were attracted by what shines, instead of recognizing how shining you are without all of this. And now you need to dig in and find those little white dots, these dots that do not have any colors, that are not tainted by any shining influence, and zoom in again to hold on to the truth, to your own identity, to your own integrity, in order to find yourself again. Another tremendous message. Shlomo HaMelech comes and teaches us that each and every one of us, we have paro inside. We have this desire for glory, this desire for power, this desire for women, this desire for beauty, this desire for fame. And we are distracted and sidetracked from the real power and the real freedom that we have without all this. Think about it. If you sit down right now and you say, okay, marbe nechassim, marbe de'aga, chachamim say in Avot. The more you own, the more balagan you have in your head. It's a lot of thoughts, right? You have to sleep at night well. Comes Shlomo HaMelech, be careful what you trade for, what you're willing to give, and what you're getting in return. Do not let the peer pressure, the eyes, the desires fool you and make you believe that owning more is better for you. Because you might trade your freedom for it. That's the message of the Malbim. So here we see how the Gaon and the Malbim from complete different angles come and teach us tremendous lessons from the same exact Pesukim.
It's amazing. These Pesukim, they're like ever changing. It's like the Mona Lisa. You see it from different angles and it looks different.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the beauty of love.
Right. Yeah, I didn't hold it. Do you think Shlomo intended both definitions when he wrote this?
Bevadai, because they're both very, very, very clear. And Shlomo HaMelech is pointing his finger at himself. He said, I allowed myself to fall for it, and I dragged down my neshama, my nefesh, okay? Instead of allowing my nefesh to control me, I let my animalistic control it.
This was after Kohelet? Written
I'm
after
sorry?
Kohelet? Was Shir HaShirim written after?
Yes.
So at this point, he already married his Egyptian wife.
Yes.
Ah.
By Paro.
Right.
And he brought to the world Romi.
And this is where the idea of not having too many horses comes from?
Well, that's in the Torah. He wanted to defeat that.
Right.
He wanted to push, like again, Shlomo HaMelech felt he had the ability to push as far. But what he's telling us is be very careful, because you can get stuck in a place where you don't come back.
Right. And the idea in the Torah was that it would send us back to Egypt, right? Because that's where most of the horses came.
Correct. And Egypt meaning what? But you need to hear. It's very, very important. I want to go back to the word for word to the definition of the Yetzer Hara of Egypt. Because what Shlomo HaMelech is telling us, we all have that inside of us. The desire, okay, is to love women that are stranger to us. What does that mean? The women that are forbidden to us. The goyot and the this, okay? And we like rabot a lot. We don't want to be limited. That have pride, that have desires, that are jealous, that have kavod and love for wealth. Although these desires and those definitions, okay, are on paper very bad, but we need to introspect ourselves and not see that we are like this. But how do we react? Are we attracted to those types of personalities when we want someone? Meaning, I'll give you an example. If you take in this case, you take a woman and she doesn't care about nothing. She's super simple. She doesn't talk the talk and walk the walk, and she doesn't dress the beautiful way. You're not even gonna look at her. Who do you want? You want the woman that's hard to get, that's beautiful, that's very different, that has a character. That doesn't mean you want to marry her, but that's the attraction. That says Shlomo HaMelech, this what you are attracted to in the profile of a woman is really the flaws that you have within you. A tremendous definition.
Amazing.
Baruch Hashem.
A powerful message.
Tov, Baruch Hashem, we have Anshe Hayil.
I just read I think it was last week's parasha in one of the Rashis. It was saying that you could tell someone's values not by what they tell their kids, by what their kids know. Because what their kids know is what you taught them and what they see, not
what
what
they
you
see.
said to them.
Bravo, what they see. Yeah, I'll tell you a story about that. I think I might have mentioned to it once. A father once goes to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he asked for brachot, and he said, my son is a big tzaddik. I have a 4-year-old, is big tzaddik. He says, Mom, what? Every morning he goes to the talit, he puts the talit on, he wants to take the tefillin, he wants to do and he prays. Mamash, I don't know, it's a neshama of a big tzaddik. So Reb Chaim told him, stop praying at home, go to shul.
That's cute.
So going back to the same thing. It's not what you teach, it's what they see. And based on their actions, you can see what they see.
Because the kid's going to learn to pray at home.
Exactly.
That's very cute. I like that.
So,
Beautiful.
okay, Baruch Hashem. So,
Thank you, Rabbi.
so yeah, we did some nice progress, but it's 3 psukim that are linked together. And
Right.
Bli Neder Be'ezrat Hashem next shiur, we're going to see what now the nefesh and the neshama in Knesset Israel responds to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the neshama.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Friday, what time?
I'm sorry?
Friday.